Welcome back. I'm Ian Masters, and this is Background Briefing, available 24/7 at backgroundbriefing.org. And joining us now is Jen Senko, who's an award-winning documentary filmmaker, media activist, and author of the new book based on her documentary of the same name, The Brainwashing of My Dad, How the Rise of the Right-Wing Media Changed a Father and Divided Our Nation, and How We Can Fight Back. And she's the co-author with Mike Lofgren of an article at Common Dreams, It's Time the Pentagon Pulled the Plug on Fox News. Welcome to Background Briefing, Jen Senko.
Oh, thank you, Ian. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we are clearly a divided nation. But when you consider the power of the U.S. military, which is unchallenged, it's challenged, but it's certainly, we spend more on the military than our 10 closest rivals and others combined, $1 trillion a year roughly, and it clearly is a powerful military that we have. But at home, we're very fragile. So we're projecting all this power abroad, but at home, we're fragile, we're fractured. The FBI is telling us that the most dangerous threat to our national security is white supremacy and militias and domestic terrorism. And the fact that you have a propaganda outfit like the Ministry of Truth, Fox News, that propagates insurrection. They encourage insurrection. They encourage people not to get vaccinated in the midst of a pandemic. They are, by all reasonable definitions, a danger to our national security. So why is it that in the Pentagon and in military facilities around the world and here in the United States, all of our soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen are watching Fox News?
Yeah, I think that it's totally unacceptable, and I'll even go so far as to say it's a little insane that with all of the attention on right-wing militias in the military, many of the people from the January 6th insurrection were from the military, including higher-up officers, that we would and with all of the Secretary Austin saying that, we have to, tackle this problem. And he even asked the military to help him with all of that they would still have a source. You can no longer say that Fox is news. Anybody knows it's not news now, except for the people who watch it. But there's no more pretending. And I see it as part of a bigger problem in that the right for the past 50 years has intimidated media and, Democrats and other areas of the government into believing that there was a liberal bias in the media. So I'm wondering if part of the hesitancy, if there is hesitancy, it seems there is, to get rid of a source like Fox, partly comes from that fear of we don't want to be accused of liberal bias. But see, it's the loudest voices in the room that get the attention. And Fox and the right wing has made it their mission over the last 50 years to be the loudest voices in the room. And we were cowed. When I say we, I mean, people that didn't watch Fox, like wherever that worked, in, the government, in the media, especially people. And they bent to that. And I think that it by allowing ourselves to bend to that, we have come to this incredibly and dangerously fractured point in our country. And it's no doubt that Fox is anti-American. It's propaganda. There's no doubt it lies. It boldly lies now. It blatantly lies now. And for it to be in the military when we're trying to fight right-wing extremism is incomprehensible to me.
Well, apparently, as far as I can tell, Fox News, in terms of the Murdoch family, they've sort of lost control of it. That Lachlan Murdoch, the heir, is supposed to be in charge, has moved to Australia. So I don't know that you could run an American news company from Australia because the time difference is quite inconvenient. And apparently it's pretty much in the hands of Viet Ding, this right-wing lawyer, Opus Dei guy, who is apparently pretty much running it. And I don't know what the agenda is, whether they really understand what they're doing. In Murdoch's case, it was all about money, I think, and power. He's, of course, a kingmaker. That's how he gets his jollies. Puts Tony Blair in and then gets mad at Tony Blair in the UK and gets rid of him. And he's done the same in Australia, where he controls the press. Three-quarters of the press in Australia is controlled by News Corp. Mm-hmm. And they put this born-again guy, just like Mike Pence, Morrison, who the Australians refer to as a godbotherer or a happy clapper, because he's one of those people that get into those charismatic trances and dances around and has the spirit of the Lord, vibrating through his body. So that's what he does. But at the moment, it's hard to understand what's going on there in terms of any kind of rational and reasonable control and what their agenda is. So the only explanation I have is that it is out of control, that Tucker Carlson does what he wants to do and nobody can stop him. And go ahead if you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. You gave a lot to chew on there. That's really important. I think that the Murdochs don't care what this other person in charge is doing. In fact, Murdoch, like you said, he's a kingmaker. Going way back to Australia, he's gotten people elected, and then when he tires of them or they don't give him what he wants, then he gets rid of them through the media. He knows how powerful media is. And being that they are the owners of News Corp, they know what's going on. Murdoch one time even said that, and this is in my book, that he didn't think a dictatorship would be so bad. So, I mean, going far right is very beneficial for these billionaires. And I think there's sort of a sociopathy that happens with them, where they're so disconnected from reality or the way ordinary people live in life, that it does just become about power, and more money. And it's runaway capitalism. So I think they do know what's going on. I mean, Murdoch purposely chose Roger Ailes to set up Fox. And the purpose of Fox, I don't like to say news in the same sentence as Fox. The purpose of Fox was to demonize Democrats, which is the other half of the country, at least, our country, and to create Republican voters so that they could ideally go after this libertarian idea of a free market economy. And it goes way back. If you look at history, there's the Lewis Powell memo in 1971. It even goes back further than that, like to the Birch Society. And this has been their aim. So I don't think the Murdochs have the capacity to really care.
I see. So that's not that they've lost control. If they don't care and they're happy with what's happening. And again, I'm speaking with Jen Senko, who's an award-winning documentary filmmaker, media activist, and author of the new book based on her documentary of the same name, The Brainwashing of My Dad, How the Rise of the Right-Wing Media Changed a Father and Divided Our Nation and How We Can Fight Back. And she's the co-author with Mike Lofgren of an article at Common Dreams, It's Time the Pentagon Pulled the Plug on Fox News. So, of course, if the Pentagon did pull the plug on Fox News, that would be challenged in the courts immediately under the First Amendment. But I think what you're suggesting in the article is you don't have to switch to MSNBC or CNN, that's sort of in the middle. of the sort of ideological spectrum. But you could have ESPN on, couldn't you, instead of Fox?
Yeah, or C-SPAN. The Army and Air Force Exchange Service, which controls most military retail facilities, actually sent a memo to their managers suggesting that sports rather than any news be shown, in the common areas. So if they want to chicken out, they could do that. Or like you said, ESPN or C-SPAN. And then there's even a group called Vote Vets, which had specifically asked for a ban on Fox News at the Department of Defense facilities. So I don't know why the Pentagon is, well, we do know why the Pentagon is doing it. I'm sure that they think like this will really, really create a rumble, maybe even tip into violence or something like that. I don't know, but...
Well, but they're all sworn to protect and defend the country from all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
And Fox News is now a domestic enemy. It is encouraging insurrection. It is encouraging anti-vaxxing, which affects the readiness of the U.S. military. And we've already had the governor of Oklahoma, one of these Trumpsters, try to stop the National Guard there from obeying the Pentagon's orders to get vaccinated. The Pentagon have been vaccinating people forever. They shot the soldiers up during the Gulf War with some vaccines, supposedly, against anthrax and chemical weapons, which were highly dangerous vaccines. And the COVID vaccines have been proven to be incredibly safe. So it's just craziness, and it's irresponsible, and somebody's got to step up and show some cojones here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Fox is responsible, I believe, for brainwashing almost half the country. And speaking of half the country, the country isn't all Republicans. I mean, it's half Democrats, if not more than half. And we pay taxes for the military to protect us and be on our side. So we don't want to be paying our taxes for the military to be propagandized to hate those who are Democrats and not on board with this far-right ideology.
Well, let's talk about the Trump cult because of your book, The Brainwashing of My Dad, How the Rise of the Right-Wing Media Changed a Father and Divided a Nation, and How We Can Fight Back. Because when you talk about brainwashing, that's what cults do. Mm-hmm. And Trump clearly has a cult-like grip over the Republican Party. The moderate traditional Republicans are terrified of him, and he's basically creating a kind of loyalty test. And if you fail the loyalty test, you get booted out of the party, like they booted out Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. And in doing so, the RNC justified what it's doing, saying that January the 6th insurrection was legitimate political discourse. So the party itself is now endorsing insurrection and violence. Right. So it's a crazy time. So give us just in the last few minutes here a picture of how you were able to deprogram your father from this right-wing cult thinking, this Trumpsterism, and how that could be extended nationwide, because it's very hard to reach these people. They're being conned, but it's a dangerous situation for the nation and the world.
It is a very dangerous situation. Well, it didn't happen overnight. First of all, my parents used to email each other, Democrat, Republican, inflammatory emails. But my mom learned how to source, and so she would source, and she'd send an email back to my dad. And for years, that didn't seem to affect him. But as he got older, they moved to a senior community, and in the move, my dad's radio broke, and he used to be in love with Rush Limbaugh. I mean, really, he would marry Rush Limbaugh if he weren't married to my mother. And that broke the the habit. It broke the neurotransmitters or what have you, and there was a big change immediately. And then after that, then he went into the hospital for a kidney stone, and my mom was worried about the email piling up in his inbox because they had these old computers, and she asked me to delete some of the emails, and I did, and I said they just keep coming, and so she got the idea to unsubscribe him from them and subscribe him to some more progressive emails, and she did that. And when he came back, he read both. But so, it took about, maybe it took like a year, but it worked. He actually ended up voting for Obama. In my last interview with him for the movie, he was negating everything that he had said previously, like, I don't believe in the minimum wage. I don't believe in gay marriage. There should be no Department of Energy. He just negated all that. Yes, gay marriage, if they want to do that, sure, fine. Minimum wage, yes, I believe in that. So it was a remarkable thing. It's not easy because many of these people have been living, this has been going into their brains for years and years and years.
Right. Well, what it's telling us then is that if these people in the Trump cult and in the right-wing Fox bubble, and Sinclair and Salem and OANN and Newsmax and Breitbart, if they're all in that bubble, it's very hard to reach them with facts and information. But if they do get exposed to alternative information, then the change can happen. So I guess that's the challenge, right? To find ways to get these people in these red states exposed to alternative information, or in fact, real information, as opposed to lies and propaganda.
Right. I think, my dad was a good case study. You take away that media, and then he went back to being himself. He was no longer a zealot, an extremist, which he had been before. But there's some good stuff going on, if I can mention just briefly. There's a couple groups now that are grassroots that are starting to deal with the media, real fake news. Like Truth Tuesdays, they demonstrate in front of Fox every Tuesday at noon. And these things are starting to pop up in different states, and that's a good thing. So there's good things happening. Finally, I just hope it's not too late.
So just in closing, it's the group that does Truth Tuesday demonstrating in front of Fox studios. What's the group called? It's
an arm of the group Rise and Resist.
Rise and Resist. Okay.
But the direct action is Truth Tuesdays.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jen Senko.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, for having me. It was fun.
And again, I've been speaking with Jen Senko, an award-winning documentary filmmaker, media activist, and author of the new book based on her documentary of the same name, The Brainwashing of My Dad, How the Rise of the Right-Wing Media Changed a Father and Divided Our Nation, and How We Can Fight Back. And she's the co-author with Mike Lofgren of an article at Common Dreams, It's Time the Pentagon Pulled the Plug on Fox News. This has been Background Briefing. I'm Ian Masters, and I'd like to thank producer Graham Fitzgibbon. And to help us sustain this program into the future and assure it remains free to all, please take a moment to support us by going to backgroundbriefing.org/donate or publictruthmedia.org, where you will find our non-profit Public Truth Media Foundation, where your tax-deductible donations, large and small, keep us broadcasting. And if you missed any of today's program and would like to explore our vast archives, you can find us at backgroundbriefing.org, where we'll include extended interviews searchable by topic, and have made it easy for you to sign up for daily email updates that provide links to resources, articles, and books discussed on the program. Also, you can find links there to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we also encourage your ratings and reviews on these platforms. Find us on Twitter and Facebook at Ian Masters Media. And please do help us reach more listeners by sharing this program with friends, family, and colleagues. And I'll be back again tomorrow with another background briefing at backgroundbriefing.org. Bye for now. The guy that lived next door in 305
took the kids to the park and disappeared by 9:30. Who will ever know how much she loved them so? That dark night alone in America. A quiet voice singing something to me, an age-old song about the home of the brave in this land here of the free. One time, one night in America. Four small boys playing ball in the parking lot. A preacher, a teacher, and the other became a cop. A car skidded into the rain, making the last little one to say, one more light goes out in